are making way for me. I'm coming home, sweet home.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of On Philosophy. So, I think I might have mentioned this last time I was doing this. I don't know how many more of these I'm going to do, because when I started On Philosophy, I was in this really uncomfortable place from a spiritual standpoint, and I'm no longer in that uncomfortable place. I am now much more comfortable with who I am and what I am. Now, the other day I was at work, and I was telling one of my coworkers that I had this problem with my spirituality, and that I was trying desperately to find a way to take what I know and what I believe and put them together into a single philosophy. Now, ultimately, I believe I've spent way too much of my life worrying about theology, bibliology, and philosophy in general. I'm honestly much more interested in math, science. They just seem like much better endeavors, much more worthwhile things to think about. Okay, so I suck at mechanics, but at least that's something that you can deal with, something you can handle. Anyway, I'm already off topic. Let me try to get back to what I wanted to actually say. I was talking to my coworker, and I had told them I'm in this uncomfortable spiritual place, and that I don't think I can continue to believe in any God without some outstanding level of evidence. I was already a Lutheran who converted to a Mormon, and a Mormon who converted to a polytheist, and now I'm a polytheist who is converting to atheism. So my coworker looks at me and looks terrified by this whole concept, that someone can change their mind, can examine evidence and decide, maybe this isn't right for me. So she throws her hands up in the air and says, "Dustin, please. It doesn't matter what you believe, so long as you believe. You'll be punished for not believing." Punished, huh? For not believing? By who? By what? Now, I know what she was getting at. This is a idea come up with by theist called Pascals Wager. Now, there's a serious problem with this argument, and I don't know if people who try to use this truly understand what it is. Here is the layman's version of Pascals Wager. If there is a God who is awake and active in the world today, but you believe that God has gone inactive, then you'll be punished. If God is inactive, but you believe he is active, then you will not be punished. Therefore, if your thoughts of hell are accurate and are not, then there is no suffering associated with it. But if my idea of hell is wrong, then I have to worry about your hell. I am not worried about hell at all because of an intellectual honesty. Now, I'd tried to adhere to this, but there are ballpark figure 10,000 gods. And each god comes equipped with their own set of dogmas, their own rules, their own regulations, their own incentives, their own punishments. But they are not mutually exclusive to one another, which means just because you dodged one hell doesn't mean you dodged all of them. That's the problem. That's why Pascal's Wager doesn't work. Because you need to do two things in order to actually adhere to Pascal's Wager. You have to accept the existence of every god, and you have to adhere to every god's rules. Otherwise, you've adhered to a completely different philosophy, which is called cherry picking, sometimes, or there's another term used for it, hang on, it's special pleading, wherein you have already accepted the idea that your God is real, and you've already had asserted, my God is not. How do you come to this conclusion that one God is better than other gods? And not even that one God's better than other gods, but one God is more real than other gods. You see, you can't. If you're going to prescribe to hell being an incentive for me to have faith, then you cannot choose which hell you want there to be. I'm going to paint with a broad brush here. If you are prescribing to Pascal's Wager, you are most likely a member of the Judean faith, be that Catholic, Lutheran, Protestant, Mormon, they all fall into the same general category, or even Islam still falls into the category of the Judean faiths. But you're not the only game in town. What if the Hindus are right, and there's a god of fire and a god of ice, and they're at war with each other? Well, your idea of hell just went to hell. I'm sorry, it just didn't work. And even between your own denominations, again, broad brush here, you can't be right with yourself. Because you, chances are, don't have a firm grasp of who wrote the Bible, when they wrote the Bible, why they wrote the Bible. Going back to the idea of special pleadings, there are a number of scientists in the world who have engaged in bad science. They have started with their hypothesis and went in search of evidence to support their own claim. That's not the way that good science is performed. You don't start with your conclusion and then look for evidence. You start with evidence and look for a conclusion. To do otherwise is to defeat the purpose of science. I'm not a scientist myself, but my God, these people are dedicated people. They want to understand the world. And I respect that, and I don't think I could ever be a part of it. But I can still stand in the background and cheer and encourage people to look, to understand. So what is the opposite stance? If I'm not going to prescribe to Pascal's Wager, which I'm not, I need to choose something else to do, right? Here's what I'm choosing. I am going to reject every God claim until someone can present me with an amount of data that is convincing that there is a God. So I'm not saying I believe there are no gods. I'm saying I don't believe in God at this point. I know I'm basically playing with the words there, but it makes a difference which direction you say it. I'm still saying there's the possibility, but at the moment, I don't see it. in the last couple of weeks, I've hit every, I think, different variation on these arguments. Intellectual fallacies is what these would be. So, what comes next? Maybe it's best to be able to say, I don't know, and look for something that makes sense. And I'm going to have to try to avoid becoming confused by magic tricks. I'm going to have to see if I can watch our magician's hands and figure out where they're pulling the card out of the air from. I think I've really said all I can say at this point. And I can offer this advice to anybody who's in the same headspace that I am. Keep your eyes open. Only accept that which you could demonstrably see. If you are experiencing something that you would consider paranormal, look at all the possibilities first. If you see a man levitating under a blanket, maybe before you assume that they're using magic, try to look under the bed sheets. See if they're wearing shoes on stilts. If you see water being turned to wine, maybe you should check and make sure that the flask was empty to begin with. And if you see eyes growing out of a plank of wood, learn something about botany. It will make more sense. Thank you very much. I'm Dustin Feyder, and this has been On Philosophy.
The wind, it will take me back to my